Picture this, the controlled chaos of an emergency room. A patient is rushed in with some really bad injuries. The clock is ticking, every single second counts, and a million things need to happen all at once. So in that kind of high-stakes world, how do medical teams actually bring order to all that chaos and, save a life? Well, it's not guesswork, it's a system. And that's the big question, right? You've got multiple injuries, blood pressure's dropping, the patient might be out of it. The sheer number of problems is just overwhelming. So where do you even start? Do you go for the obvious wound you can see? Do you worry about their breathing, their heart rate? If you make the wrong choice first, it could be fatal. And the answer, believe it or not, is the alphabet. That's it. It's as simple and powerful as the ABCs you learned as a kid. But of course, this isn't just any alphabet. It's a very specific, carefully designed sequence where every single letter stands for a life-saving priority. It's the tool that turns that chaos into a clear, life-saving plan. So what we're talking about here, this system has a name. It's called the primary survey. It is the absolute bedrock of modern trauma care, a protocol that's taught to doctors, paramedics, everyone, through something called Advanced Trauma Life Support, or ATLS. The goal is super simple. Find and fix whatever is going to kill the patient first. And it all begins with the letter A. A is for airway. So why A? Why is airway always first? Well, think about it. You can have all the blood and oxygen you want in your body, but if there's no path for it to get to the lungs, a person will die in just a few minutes. A blocked airway is the most immediate threat to life, period. So we deal with that before anything else.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? First, you just assess. Is air moving? Can the patient talk? If not, we do simple things like a chin lift or a jaw thrust. But, and this is absolutely critical, we have to protect the neck. In a trauma situation, you have to assume there could be a neck injury, so every single thing you do is done incredibly carefully to keep that cervical spine stable.
Now, if those basic moves aren't enough, we need what's called a definitive airway. And trust me, doctors are super specific about this term for a reason. It's not just shoving any tube in there. It's a specific endotracheal tube that has an inflatable cuff on the end. Once it's in, you inflate that little balloon, and it creates a perfect seal. That seal protects the lungs from any blood or fluids and guarantees that oxygen has a clear path. It is the gold standard.
All right, so we've got a clear, protected airway. We're good to go, right? Well, not so fast. A clear pipe is totally useless if the lungs, the bellows, aren't working. And that brings us to our next letter, B, for breathing. We have to make absolutely sure the patient is actually moving air in and out of their lungs. When it comes to breathing in a trauma setting, there are three big, scary things we're hunting for immediately. First, a tension pneumothorax. That's when air gets trapped in the chest and starts pushing everything, even the windpipe, over to the side. Then you've got an open pneumothorax, literally a sucking chest wound. And finally, a massive hemothorax, which is when the chest just fills up with blood. Each one has its own telltale sign and needs a very specific, very fast fix. And just so we're clear, when we say massive hemothorax, we are not kidding. We're talking about losing over 1,500 milliliters of blood right into the chest cavity. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's more liquid than a big soda bottle. It's a catastrophic internal bleed that needs a chest tube right now and probably means the patient is headed straight to the operating room. Okay, airway is open, breathing is happening. So what's the next thing that's going to kill our patient? It's blood loss. That takes us to C, circulation. And here the mission is pretty straightforward. Stop the bleeding and replace what's been lost. So, this C step is just this flurry of action. You're looking for any major bleeding on the outside and stopping it. At the same time, you're getting IV access. And not just one, but 2 large bore IVs. We need big pipes to push fluids and blood in fast. And all the while, you're constantly on the lookout for the signs of that deadly state we call shock. So what exactly is shock? The simplest way to think about it is that the body's power grid is failing. There just isn't enough oxygenated blood getting to the vital organs. To figure out how bad the crisis is, we classify it on a scale from class 1, which is pretty mild, all the way to class 4, which is life-threatening. And this isn't just some textbook thing. It gives us a real-time score of just how close to the edge our patient really is. All right, so we've hopefully stopped the patient from dying right this second. Air is going in, blood is staying in. Now we can take a quick second to check the main computer, the brain. This is D for disability, and it's a super fast check for any neurological injury.
And I mean quick. We are not pulling out the big neural toolkit here. This is all about speed. We use two really powerful tools for this. The first is the Glasgow Coma Scale, or GCS, which gives us a score for their level of consciousness. The second is a simple pen light to check their pupils. Are they the same size? Do they react to light? A change here can be the very first clue that there's a serious head injury going on.
And that brings us to the end of the primary survey, the letter E. And E is kind of tricky because it stands for two things that seem opposite: exposure and environment. We have to see everything to make sure we haven't missed an injury, but at the same time, we have to protect the patient from the environment around them.
And you can see how this is a real balancing act, right? We have to get all of their clothes off because the one injury you miss hidden under a shirt could be the one that kills them. But the second you expose a patient, they start losing body heat fast. That's super dangerous because getting too cold or hypothermia actually makes it harder for blood to clot, which makes bleeding worse. So as we expose, we're immediately covering them with warm blankets and giving them warmed IV fluids to keep their temperature up.
So, after all of that, what is the one thing you absolutely have to remember? Especially for anyone out there studying for exams like the NEET. They love to give you a complex trauma scenario with all sorts of distracting injuries. But if the question is, what is the first step? The answer is always airway. Don't even think twice. It's airway first. So that's the ABCDE protocol. It's this incredible tool that brings order to absolute chaos, a logical sequence to save a life. But it does leave you with a final thought. This system is perfect for a fully staffed, well-equipped hospital. But what happens when things change? What happens when resources are low? Or what happens when it's just you on the side of a road? That's when knowing this stuff really matters.